Help me reach 1,000 subscribers by supporting this video with a like and sharing your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you. I never imagined that something spoken in a flash of anger could completely remove a person from your life, but that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Emily, and until last winter I truly believed my marriage was solid. Maybe not perfect but steady. Mark and I had been together for 12 years, married for 9. He was quiet and reliable, the kind of man who showed love through actions rather than words. For a long time I told myself that was what I valued most. Somewhere along the way I started resenting it. The night everything shifted didn't feel important at the time. The house was calm, bills spread across the table, clean dishes stacked in the rack, the television humming softly. Mark came home late from the garage, shoulders heavy, hands still marked with grease. He mentioned that his supervisor had mocked him in front of the crew. I barely glanced up from my phone. I felt exhausted, drained from what I told myself was always carrying the emotional weight in our relationship. When he sighed and said he felt invisible at work, something sharp rose up in me. I told him he needed to stand up for himself. He said he had tried. I laughed, a short, ugly laugh, and said maybe he just wasn't man enough to earn respect. I could feel the words hit harder than I expected, but instead of stopping, I doubled down. I accused him of lacking drive, backbone, presence. I compared him to other husbands. I said things that can never be pulled back once they're released. Mark didn't yell. He didn't argue. He went completely still, like a switch had been flipped. Then he walked past me without a word and closed himself into the spare bedroom. I assumed he needed time. I told myself it would pass. The next morning he was gone before sunrise. That night he came home, made dinner, and ate standing at the counter with his back turned to me. When I asked if we needed to talk, he said no. From that day on he stopped looking at me. If I entered a room, he found a reason to leave it. He took care of everything, errands, chores, routines, but emotionally he erased himself from my life. When I tried to apologize, he said he heard me, then turned away. Weeks passed and I started noticing everything I had taken for granted. The way he used to check the locks before bed. How he warmed the car on cold mornings. How his hand used to find mine in crowded places. All of it disappeared quietly and completely. I told myself he was punishing me. I told myself he was being dramatic. But deep down I knew this was something else. Anger would have been easier. His silence felt deliberate, precise. One night I followed him into the garage and asked if he even loved me anymore. Without looking at me he said, "Love doesn't survive contempt." Then he picked up his tools and walked past me like I wasn't there. That was the moment fear finally settled in. I realized I hadn't just insulted him. I had attacked something deeply private, something fragile he'd never shown anyone else. I tried everything after that. Notes, favorite meals, quiet tears he wouldn't see. Nothing reached him. When my sister visited, she noticed the tension immediately. After I told her what I'd said, she went silent and finally told me that humiliation cuts deeper than anger ever could. That night, I found an envelope on the kitchen table with my name written on it. Inside was a single page in Mark's careful handwriting. He said he wasn't leaving yet, but he was done seeing himself through my eyes. He needed distance to remember who he was without my voice echoing in his head. I sat on the floor and finally understood that my words hadn't just hurt him. They had reshaped our marriage. I slept on the couch, listening to his footsteps move through the house like sounds from a place I no longer belonged to. That's when I learned that damage doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it's quiet, exact, and permanent. Days passed. Mark moved through the house with calm efficiency, never once meeting my gaze. When the door closed behind him each morning, the silence felt heavier than before. I realized his withdrawal wasn't cruelty. It was survival. I took time off work and faced truths I'd avoided. I had wanted him to be louder, bolder, more assertive, without ever asking why he wasn't. I had compared him to men I barely knew, measuring surface confidence against quiet consistency. In doing that, I reduced someone who loved me steadily into something small, then mocked it. When Mark came home one evening, I didn't block him or demand answers. I asked if we could sit together and told him I would accept no as an answer. He hesitated, then nodded. We sat far apart on the couch. I told him I understood that I had attacked his dignity, not his behavior. I told him I was ashamed. I didn't ask for forgiveness. He listened. When I finished, he finally looked at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were exhausted. He told me he'd been replaying my words everywhere, at work, in traffic, in silence. The worst part wasn't the insult, he said. It was realizing I saw him the way he feared others did, small and replaceable. He said he needed to rebuild himself before rebuilding us. Therapy, space, time, and honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. If we continued, it would be slower and quieter, and nothing would return to what it was before. I agreed, knowing that agreement didn't guarantee anything. The weeks that followed were humbling. Mark began counseling. I learned how to listen without interrupting or reshaping his feelings. Some nights he slept beside me. Some nights he didn't. I stopped measuring progress in affection and started measuring it in trust. Months later, we attended a small gathering. Someone made a joke at Mark's expense. Calmly, without anger, he shut it down. I watched something settle into him, something solid that I hadn't destroyed, only buried. Later, in the car, he reached for my hand. It wasn't forgiveness. It was permission. I understand now that strength isn't volume or dominance. It's integrity under pressure and the courage to protect your self-respect, even from someone you love. Mark faced himself when he refused to face me, and that distance forced me to do the same. There were setbacks. Days when silence returned and fear followed it. I learned not to chase reassurance. I learned that repair isn't loud and remorse isn't performative. It's consistent. It shows up quietly day after day without demanding praise. That lesson changed me more than any apology ever could. Harm doesn't disappear, but something stronger can grow in its place. Love only survives where respect is protected. And that protection begins with restraint, humility, and the willingness to confront yourself before asking anything of someone else.